In the fall of 2004, I moved to Portland, Oregon. Prior to the move, I'd been in San Diego almost my entire life. I grew up in North County, went to school at UCSD, and spent the years after working a corporate job and hanging out in Pacific Beach. I had a lot of fun in PB. On most weekends, you could have caught me on the porch of the open bar, yelling at random passersby to come in and arm wrestle with me. Or in the PB pub, singing along to Johnny Cash on the jukebox. I had friends all over town. They knew me by name at Lahaina's, the West End, the Silver Fox. When the bars closed, we'd keep the party going, shotgunning Miller High Lifes in the backyard and throwing the empties out in the alley for the homeless guys to collect. But then something changed. After a couple years of a soul-sucking corporate job, the existential dread had begun to creep in. I was also getting older and tired of partying so much. But the main thing was, I had discovered Jack Kerouac. I was now the guy sitting in the corner of Lahaina's reading Dharma Bums. I had my Allen Ginsberg reader with me every time I went to the Silver Fox. On a certain level, I hadn't changed. I still partied, but I also read books, lots and lots of books, and had the aspiration that one day I might write a book myself. I had read an article or heard a radio show somewhere that told me that Portland, Oregon was the cool, hip place to be. It was full of people in their 20s and 30s, lots of bars and places to shop, plus a creative class and artistic scene. In my head, I pictured something kind of like PB, but with more cute artsy girls and less guys trying to look like Sum 41. I decided Portland was where I needed to be. I was really optimistic about my new city. I liked the dark bars that looked like fanciful lounges and served things you couldn't get in San Diego, like meatloaf. There were drawbridges and dirty industrial parts of town, video rental stores organized alphabetically by director. I was looking forward to drizzly days sitting inside, writing short stories on my laptop. But there were things in Portland that threw me off. Like, everybody sorted their recycling so perfectly and said hello to you when you passed them on the street. You'd see young couples strolling around town, smiling big like they had just adopted a little Ethiopian boy or won a lifetime supply of CSA baskets. And when you went to bars, everybody waited in a single file line to buy a drink. That's weird, right? I came home from work one day and I saw my roommate in the backyard. She had a handful of carrots in her hand and was chasing her chickens back into the coop for the night. My roommate fits in perfect in Portland. She splits her time between a homeless advocacy group, an organic farm, volunteers for a tree planting organization, and does square dancing on the weekend with her gay and lesbian friends. Guess what, she says when she walks in the door. This weekend I'm helping my friend move, and we're going to do a bike move. You should come. This is what a bike move is. It's when somebody moves, but instead of asking your buddy with the pickup for help or renting a U-Haul, you get a bunch of people together to load everything onto carts attached to bikes and pedal it across town. I gotta admit, I was intrigued. I'd been in Portland almost 6 months at this point, and I still hadn't made many friends. Also, my roommate had spent the last 2 weeks talking about the naked bike ride and how much fun it was. So I was curious to see what this bike scene was all about. But I still hadn't changed much from the person I was when I got to town, and I asked a question that seemed very normal to me at the time. Is there gonna be a keg? Keg, my roommate said. Why does there need to be a keg? I was just as flabbergasted by her question as she was by mine. I mean, your friends are coming over to help you move. You have to buy them beer, right? And the fact that 30 friends are coming over to help you move? A keg only makes sense. It would be fun. You could strap it to one of the bike carts and ride it across town. That's not that weird of an idea, is it? I should have known I was destined for trouble in this city. On one of my first nights in town, I met a group of people as I was jogging home from the bar at 2 a.m. I had ripped my pants at some point previously, and I was humming the theme song to Rocky in my head. This is at a point in my life when I like to blur the lines between drunk and performance art. I grabbed a Ralph Nader 04 lawn sign out of somebody's yard and started running up and down the street holding it over my head while singing the theme song to Rocky out loud. I knew I was being stupid, but I thought it would be funny, And one girl fell on the ground cracking up. Drunk, out of breath, I was done with the joke. I slowed down to a walk and threw the Nader 04 sign on somebody else's lawn. I didn't think much of it, but then one of my new acquaintances said, "Hey, dude, that was pretty funny, but, you know, now that the joke's over, don't you think you should put that sign back in the right yard?" I thought he was joking. I mean, I don't know. Who plays a drunken prank at 2 a.m. and then goes and cleans it up? That's crazy talk. But they weren't joking, and they'd all stopped and were staring me down, even the one that had fallen down laughing. I picked up the lawn sign and walked it back to the original yard, planted it with all the other lawn signs. I felt a cold breeze through my ripped pants and thought to myself, what the fuck was that? I was having a bit of a crisis. I envisioned my new artistic writerly self as being a hit in Portland. I had friends that while they didn't totally understand why I was writing short stories, they at least thought it was cool that I was doing it. And I had managed to impress almost 4 different girls with being a writer in San Diego. But in Portland, I was just another guy. Just like the generic guys with the straight-brimmed hats in PB, I was one of those now, but in Portland. I suddenly didn't feel all that excited about being a writer anymore. But furthermore, I was just having a hard time making friends. I was the life of the party back home, but in Portland, nobody seemed to like me. I was losing my grip on reality. I asked a couple of friends of mine to come visit, hoping that would cheer me up. I used to joke that if any of my friends from back home ever came to visit, they would end up on the evening news. And this was almost confirmed when Mike and Johnny did visit. On the first day, we went to the Mississippi Street Fair. They did what every San Diego guy does when they get to a street fair. They put on their shades and took off their shirts. I heard the collective vinyl collection of the entire city screech to a halt. There was a girl there doing a hula hoop dance on stilts, wearing what I can only describe as a clown bikini. A clown kini, if you will. My buddies were watching her. The rest of the street fair was watching them. For the rest of the afternoon and through the night, we went on a drunken tour of Portland. We drank Mirror Pond Pale Ales and played shuffleboard at Vendetta. We ordered blueberry infusion cocktails and annoyed our server at the Tin Shed. We drank PBR Tall Boys and accidentally disrupted a pinball tournament at the basement pub. Having my friends in town invigorated me. I hadn't been able to day drink like this since leaving PB. But most of all, I enjoyed watching the reaction my buddies got every stop along the way. At bars in San Diego, we were regularly in the corner trying to shout above the din. In Portland, we were the loudest guys in the bar. And I watched the local scorn go deeper and deeper every time one of my buddies referenced a Will Ferrell movie. Late that night, we got hungry, and with no carne asada burritos to be found, we ended up at the 24-hour hotcake house. Waiting outside, we gave our buddy Mike a drunken dare to go inside and dive across somebody's table. We'd seen it done once at the Denny's in PB. It started a food fight at 2 a.m. Pancakes were flung like frisbees, and people scurried under booths to hide. The staff was horrified, but not especially shocked. We didn't actually think that he'd do it, but a minute later we saw Mike inside, pacing up and down the aisles. He chose a table with two big nerdy guys just finishing up. We watched him take a step back, one final look around, then run and dive across the table. The whole thing tilted over, dishes slid to the ground, and Mike's feet went straight up in the air. He popped up a moment later with a syrup-soaked plate held over his head like he had just won Wimbledon, and the entire pancake house looked at him in silent disdain. The two guys confronted Mike while he sat selling on the curb outside. He offered to pay for their meal or buy them something else, but they just gave him a guilt trip about how their friend now had to get on a red-eye flight without having finished his pancakes. We found Mike 10 minutes later hiding on somebody's porch around the corner, caressing a kitten he had found, cursing. I felt sorry for Mike. I probably should have warned him, but I really wanted to see what would happen. It had been almost a year and I still wasn't fitting in Portland. I was worried that there was something wrong with me, or was it really just that different up there? I got the answer I was looking for when I came home for Christmas. It was a beautiful 75-degree December day in San Diego. Standing out on the curb of the airport waiting for my ride to show up, I found myself standing near a cute girl with a copy of The Stranger by Albert Camus in her hand. I asked her about it. Had she read it? Did she like it? What'd she think about it? She said it was boring and didn't make any sense. And then a douchey guy in a buttoned-up shirt came down and sat next to her on the bench. I thought it was her boyfriend until he said, "So what's it going to take for a girl like you to go out with a guy like me?" And the girl said nothing, and the guy repeated the line, "What's it going to take for a girl like you to go out with a guy like me?" "Oh, I have a boyfriend," she said. "Your loss." And as he got up to leave, he turned to me, looked me straight in the eye, and slid his hand by the side of his head over his ear. Pshaw. I had totally forgotten about that kind of thing. But at that moment, the memory came rushing back, along with carne asada burritos, sunsets over the ocean, and driving 80 on the freeways. This is home.
Nathan Young.